pick the mayor's brain here. How do we kind of engage leaders at that level? Because sometimes as political leaders all have different PACs that they're invested in, different interests. How do we engage African Americans to show them the power of the vote? Because sometimes I think for sure in rural and urban communities sometimes, I don't really think African Americans understand the power of the vote, the power of the voice. How do we engage them to be able to kind of connect those dots of unity that we're talking about, to put that pressure on our political leaders when we see that there is a need? How do we do that?
Well, I think you have to definitely hold your political leaders accountable. One thing, I hate when I hear people say, well, my vote doesn't matter, I'm not going to vote, blah, 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 because that is as far from the truth as possible. And I mean, from a local level on up, I think that is very far from the truth. The reality is you have to hold your leaders accountable. What happens is, and what makes your vote less valuable, is that you elect people and then you just kind of throw your hands up. I watch it on a regular basis, people who were elected and say they were going to do X, do Y. And because the people, and I'm going to say you specifically, people don't go and see how they're voting, what bills they're putting forward. Are you putting any bills forward? Are you sponsoring? What sort of development are you bringing into the community? Who are you hiring in your office as a political leader? Those questions, people just elect elected officials and they just kind of like disappear. You, the residents, have to hold your elected officials accountable. You have to go to your council meetings here in the District of Columbia. You have to go to write your legislators. You have to be more proactive, because the reality is the elected leaders are going to respond to those people who are proactive. And if Black Lives Matter, then we have to decide that our issues matter once we elect people. And so we have to go to Maryland, Annapolis, you have to go to Capitol Hill, you have to go there and make sure they are holding up their end of the bargain as to what you elected them for. And if they don't, you need to let them know. Because I assure you, every elected official I know, they respond based on those people who are showing an active interest. If you don't show an active interest, your issue is kind of like this is talking at the dinner table. It's not going to matter unless you actually show your face, write letters, and put your concerns really upfront and personal. Because other than that, it's not going to matter.
By round of hands, who all is registered to vote in this room? Everyone that's of age. Okay, great. Just want to make sure. Just to piggyback on what she was saying, the issue that we've seen in regards to voting is real. There's been several practices, particularly in the last presidential election, in certain states where there's been efforts to roll back access to voting, whether it be through the number of voting machines at a certain location, whether it be the distance, the actual miles you have to travel to the voting location, if you're a student, do you have to go, can you vote on campus, do you have to go off campus? All these issues are at play. Also, the engagement question. Focusing on voting, which I know a lot of people speak about, we talk about the Voting Rights Act and things of that nature, but the engagement has to be there. I hate to say it, but I have some criticism for the Black Lives Matter movement. To me, thus far, the movement hasn't been as specific when it comes to politics, when it comes to individual candidates, what you want these people to do. To me, it is not enough to be upset. It is not enough to be angry. It is not enough to be just dissatisfied with the current leadership. If people are running, they're asking for your vote, they're asking for you to stand up and stand in line, maybe on a cold Tuesday somewhere, what do they want from you? And actually, what do you want from them? And I think that it's not just incumbent on individuals, because I know we all have our individual desires. Someone else may want a job, someone else may want better pay, equal rights, equal pay. But it comes to, what are we saying as a group? And I think that that hasn't been quite answered. Now, I don't lay that on anyone's particular head. I don't lay that on the leadership. I don't know the leadership of the Black Lives Matter movement. But I think that if we really want to see anything happen, if this movement has particular goals, what are the goals? You know, are they stated anywhere? Does it come down to just access to jobs? What jobs? What industries are these jobs in? I think all these questions have to be asked, and they haven't been asked, and they haven't really been demanded. You know, everyone knows the Frederick Douglass quote, you know, power concedes nothing without the demand. What is our demand going forward? And so, I don't want to break up kind of where we are, but I think that they have a task as politicians, and we have to have our own tasks. We have to have things that, and you have to uphold ourselves accountable. And I think that when we think about engagement, there is a responsibility on both sides. And I think we have more to do. And they definitely have a lot more to do. But we have not been as specific as I think we can be. Because when it comes to election time, we can't say, oh, well, you didn't do this, or you didn't do that. Well, what did you ask of them to do? So, and I think that goes to any level, not just the presidential level. It goes to your local leaders, your governor, your mayor, and so on and forth. So, that's all.
You know, I think it's important to educate the young people. You know, I go to the schools and I talk to the kids. They have no idea who, you know, they were asking me, you're the mayor, do you live at the White House? No, baby, no. You know, we need to educate our youth. You know, I serve as the vice president of the Maryland Black Mayors Association of all the black mayors in Maryland, but I also serve on the board of all the municipalities, because the decisions are being made at a table where we're not at. And if we don't educate our youth to get at these tables, we're going to continue to be left out of the conversation. You know, I joke with some of my colleagues. I'm sitting there with Rockville and Greenbelt and so forth. And I go, thank you for letting Little Capitol Heights sit at the table, because the issues that they are raising, we would not be able to have input on if we didn't get to that table. So we have to educate our youth to come on. You're going to be kind of, how can you complain if you're outside the club, you know, talk like in the level they understand. You have to be at the table to be able to have these conversations, but they don't even know how to get to the table, and that's where I think we have to educate them, how to get to the table.
Yeah, one of the change in America, or really in many societies, such as obviously civil rights, voting rights, was through mass movements. There was a time when children in this country in the 19th century worked 16, 12-hour days. The 8-hour workday came from mass movement of people in the 1930s. So voting, while, you know, as an individual I do vote, I'm registered, I think we need to focus, what I like about this period that we're coming into is that it's focusing on how do we make change through mass movements. The people aren't engaged in the system, mass participation. Part of building a movement is doing political education to the community. And that's something we do, at least very monthly. We have popular education sessions, like next Thursday we'll be having one at Benning Road, talking about community control of police, particularly next month is Women's History Month. How do you focus on, how does this do particularly community control of police, particularly of black women? So I think just building on the idea of mass movements and mass participation, and really like talking about what are the objectives of Black Lives Matter, I think part of it is a lot of discussion has been historically in the civil rights movement and today around racism and anti-black racism. Our organization, we go for power. We think the issue is that black people don't have power. It's not just racial prejudice, it's not just ideas in white people's heads. It's actually the fact that we don't have power. We don't have control of the political economic system. We're not at the, as she said, perhaps at the table is the way she said it. Having the power is really going to be central. That's why there was a black power movement, because they understood the issue was black folk don't have power. If you don't have power, someone can just take you and push you. Well, you were in Southeast, you're Northeast, now you're going to be in Ward 9, I guess it's PG County. So, like that, the issue of power has to be central to the discussion. Voting can do that, but I think mass movements, which is what got us to vote, everyone is right to vote, is building those mass movements, which include political education and other issues.
While I agree with mass movement, I do take issue with the fact that we don't have power. I think that as a people, we have the check. We just don't cash it. And we have the power. We're just not bringing that mass you talk about to a place where we can use the power, because we haven't collectively done what my colleagues are saying, identified what is the power. A lot of our work gets dissipated because we're moving in so many different directions. We can only rise up like this, maybe a little at a time. And heaven forbid we have to go backwards. We're only rising a little at a time. Not nearly soon enough for the next generation to recognize that they don't have to burn their hands to know that the fire is hot. We already did that. We did that. So we're going to have to decide on which one of these places that we can reach, we can use the power we already have by setting that goal. Which one or a few of these places, and work hard together to get the win and then get that momentum.